Welcome everybody to Millionaire Mindset. My name is Jonathan Bodnar. I am so excited to be here with you guys. Happy Monday. Monday is by far my absolute favorite day of the week. Mondays are just when the most life happens and when you get the most done in work and whatever else you're working on. I love Mondays. They're full of coffee, exciting meetings, but you could say I'm a little strange. So today, I want to take some time and talk about failures and mistakes in business. So we could talk all day long about failed business ventures, but that's going to be for another day. Today, we're going to focus on mistakes. Mistakes in business are inevitable. No matter what you're doing, no matter who you're talking to, no matter how far along in business they are, they've made mistakes. It's the only way you can actually build a business is when you make mistakes because, and I like to say it like this. I like to tell people you should fail faster than your competition. At the end of the day, if you spend more time making the mistakes that every single person in the industry has to make anyway, then you're going to get to that result faster than your competitors will. So if you focus on how quickly you can fail by failing faster, you can actually succeed a lot faster than your competition or the person next door, because at the end of the day, you are being humble and willing to actually swallow your pride and make the failures that they're going to have to make anyway. And by making those failures, you learn how something is not possible. In business especially, if you're doing any amount of innovating, meaning you're marketing to a new market that you've never marketed to, or let's say your product has never been marketed to. I've heard a million people come to me and say, hey, I'm going to take this product or this idea to this industry. Well, that's innovation too. That's just as innovative as creating a new feature in a product or inventing something new. And so if you're going to be innovative at all, you have to be willing to fail, and you have to be willing to make mistakes. Mistakes will teach you not just how it's not possible or how it can't be done, but eventually the road of mistakes and the road paved by mistakes will lead you to success. And so mistakes are inevitable, and they're so important, and they humble us, and they keep us, honestly, they keep us honest, and they keep us real in business. If you've ever met an actual true business person, most times they don't have a lot of pride. They're not coming off as, a lot of business people don't come off arrogant because guess what? They've been dragged through the mud. They've lived life. They figured out, wow, I'm nothing. I fail constantly and I'm no better than anybody else. The only difference between you sitting on this other side of the camera, if you don't own a business, or even if you do, and somebody who's made millions and millions of dollars in their life, the only difference between the two, the chasm that most people think, the only difference between somebody that's made it and somebody that hasn't made it is that the person that made it just never quit. They never stopped, even in the face of failure, even in the face of mistakes. They just kept going. If you don't quit, you win, no matter what. That's the only difference between you and success. That's the only thing standing in your way is not quitting. And I know it sounds easy, but it's not. I have made so many mistakes in my life. In fact, I want to go through 6 of the mistakes, the biggest mistakes that I've made in business here in a few minutes. But I wanted to really address this idea of failing in business and this idea of making mistakes, because a lot of times you might think, well, the customers expect me to be perfect, or my friends or my colleagues or my employees expect me to be perfect. And the reality is they don't. All they expect is that you respond to mistakes and failures well. How you respond to mistakes and failures is just as important as the mistake you made in the first place and learning from that mistake. Responding to a failure or a mistake well can be the difference between customers sticking around and employees sticking around and them leaving because you didn't respond to it very well. Perfect example. There have been many times in my career where I had the opportunity to respond very negative to situations, gossip that was talked about, told about me by my employees. My entire board just leaving one day and deciding to quit the company. There is so many different things that happened to me in business. Apple shutting down my entire operation. But if I had responded in a negative manner, and if I had let my employees see that I wasn't responding well, here's what I mean by that. Had I, the way that I responded, especially in the situation with Apple, was, okay, this sucks. And I was candid with them, and I was like, this isn't a great situation to be in at all. How do we get past this? What do we do? And I brought them into the problem instead of making the problem so big that they felt like they were a tiny piece, if that makes sense. And so how you respond to mistakes in business, or problems or failures in business, even things that I've done. The board left because my company wasn't profitable. It just wasn't. Like, that's not their fault. That's my fault. And sure, you could say the board should have stuck around, but at the end of the day, the board left my company, my very first company that I had built, and found good, I thought was success, just wasn't enough success for them. And so that was a mistake and a failure on my part to lead that business. And instead of blaming it all on the board and being like, hey, the board left and the whole company's failing and blah, blah, blah. Instead of that, I let my employees into the situation. And I asked them, like, where do we go from here? Do we want to rebuild? Because guess what? Your employees and your customers are the ones that you're going to need if you're going to keep going in the face of adversity and in the face of failure. And so how you respond to failure is so important in business. And it's probably one of the most important things that you do in business is respond to failure. And it might sound like, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be making money and all this. Money will follow good character, good product, and good culture in a business. And good culture is built by being candid and responding well. When you respond well to failure and mistakes, your employees respond well to failure and mistakes. And when you build a culture in your company, your organization, your family, your business, whatever, wherever you work, your entire, whether you work as a manager, whether you work as a like a lower level employee, it doesn't matter. You can help build that culture of responding well to failure and mistakes. In fact, I love when my employees make a mistake because it gives them the opportunity to come to me and say, hey, this happened. Like, here's my ideas on how to fix this. And that's how they become leaders. Leaders are people that respond well to mistakes. And I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's so important to understand that the culture of true, candid, transparency, not just between the boss, but also with the employees, is so important in any organization. Whether you're at the top or you're at the bottom of the totem pole, mistakes and the ability to make mistakes and to fail faster is of utmost importance. So fail fast, enjoy the ride, enjoy making mistakes, because mistakes are the most important things that you're going to do in business. So let's get started with the 6 biggest mistakes that I made in business. The 6 biggest mistakes that I made in business. And you might ask, why should we listen to you, Jonathan? Well, I was 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago now, I was homeless and living in my car. And I went from being homeless to building and selling multi-million-dollar companies before I was 30. I didn't do that without other people's help. I didn't do that without the grace of God. I didn't do that without a lot of different factors. And a huge factor to my success is the ability to fail faster and allow myself to make mistakes in business. It is paramount that you give yourself the grace to make mistakes and move forward and keep growing, because they're inevitable. And so here are the 6 biggest mistakes that I've made in business and on my business journey. Mistake number 1, operating outside of my purpose and my passion. Yeah, I know, sounds wishy-washy, but hear me out. Because purpose and passion are the key to quality and success. When you're chasing something that you truly love and that you actually care about, you do a good job on it. For example, my business, Apollo 11, is an agency. We have about 52 employees right now, and we always hire off of something called the DISC test. You might ask, well, what is a DISC test? It's an awesome personality test, but it really focuses on the type of 4 different types of people: a D, an I, an S, and a C. That's DISC. Right? So D's are very direct, demanding, very high energy, straight to the point type of people. I is very interpersonal, very friendly, very outgoing, motivational, inspirational. S is they're steady, they're very structured and consistent. C is compliance, so it's actually attention to detail and things like that. And so you have these 4 different major competing personality types. And when we hire in our company, we look at what your results are, and usually you have a piece of each of those, right? So it's a scale of 1 to 100 on D, I, S, and C. And so maybe you're a high D or a high I and a low S and a low C. My personal one is high I, which means I love people, I'm super relational. I have a little bit, a super high D, but just under my I, which means I'm very direct, I'm very driven and just out there. And then I have absolutely no S, which is steadiness, and absolutely no C, which is attention to detail, just none. Most people are usually somewhere in the middle. And so I'd encourage you, if you haven't taken the DISC test, it tells so much about you, who you are as a person, what you love to do in work, but most of all, it tells what you're going to be good at in the workplace. And so I love giving my employees, before I hire them, a DISC test, because that helps me understand what it is that they're going to love doing. Because a lot of times somebody gets a degree in design and they come in and they're a high C personality type, which means they have attention to detail, and they have 0 S or 0 I, which means they don't really understand people that well, but they have a super high attention to detail. And I look at them and I'm like, I know your degree is in design, but do you actually like design? And they're like, well, I kind of like bookkeeping better or numbers better because, that's that high attention to detail. And I'm like, well, why would you want to apply for a job in design? I know a job's a job, but why would you apply for a job that you don't love, much less for design? Because when you don't love it, you're not going to be good at it at the end of the day. And eventually you're going to get annoyed and frustrated. And at Apollo, we really want to foster the culture of people loving what they do. And so it's so important in an organization to place somebody that actually loves and is good at the job that they're doing. And that might sound rudimentary, but believe it or not, 89% of adults in America who have a degree, master's and higher, do not use it, or bachelor and higher, do not use that degree. And so it's crazy because it's like, holy crap, our entire nation went out and got these degrees that they hate or they don't care about, or maybe they do and they just got a job that they didn't like. And so when you're passionate and when you have purpose to do something, it means so much to you that you actually do a good job on it. And so one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was operating outside of my purpose and passion. As a business person, I dabbled in a lot of different types of businesses. And I learned very quickly which ones I was good at and which ones just ate my time and I was really, really bad at. And so that was probably one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made in business, was operating outside of purpose and passion, especially when it came to starting other businesses that I just didn't care about. I just thought, oh yeah, that'd make money. Money sounds great, but if you don't love something, you're not going to want to work through all of those mistakes and the failures and the frustration of business. You're not going to want to keep going if money's all that's motivating you, because money loses motivation fast. You can only so much, you only need so much money, and money loses motivation fast, because at the end of the day, it's like, what are you going to do with it? And that might sound tone deaf, but it's, trust me, like, I've had no money in my bank account more times than I can count, and I've had a lot of money in my bank account a few times, and at the end of the day, every single time, I didn't feel any different. Nothing changed. I remember the first time $1 million hit my bank account, which might sound like, oh my gosh, that's insane. You don't feel any different. Nothing changes. You don't change. And so at the end of the day, it's like, you have to do something you love, because when you love it, it will drive. Success will follow. Finances will follow. Chase what you love and what you're good at. Chase your purpose and your passion. Your purpose is what you're good at. Your passion is what you love and why you do something. The second biggest mistake that I made in business is doing it all myself and not delegating. I like to say, and some of you may have heard this before, delegate or suffocate. And that's the reality. When I first started in business, I did not hire. It was just me, and I was doing everything. Wearing all the hats, I would outsource a little bit here or there, but at the end of the day, I just didn't think I had the money to hire. And so I did it all myself, and I was exhausted and I was tired, and I lost passion for it. I burnt out for what I was doing. And if you burn out, you can't accomplish anything for anybody. And so there's so much power in delegating the small tasks, the things that burn you out, the things that I delegate the most of in any company that I start. The very first thing I delegate is numbers. I am very, very bad at bookkeeping. I told you earlier in the DISC test, I have no attention to detail. I do not like bookkeeping. I don't like ledgers. I don't like having to keep track of all the details. I hire someone for that because I'm really bad at that. But it's okay, because that's a weakness of mine, and I know that. I'm good at a lot of things, but that's something I'm bad at. And especially in business, and life in general, if you stay humble and you realize what you're not good at, then it's easier to delegate that. Now, in a large business setting, you should be delegating just about everything. If you are the vision person, if you're the one who's casting vision and coming up with the ideas and innovating, then at the end of the day, you should be the one delegating everything down to, it should be you, managers, and then people that work under them in a large organization. But I know a lot of people I'm talking to today don't have large organizations, and that's okay. Small things, even if you're working for somebody else, you can delegate so much in your life. You can, it's funny, even my wife and I, before we ever had money, before we delegated cleaning in the house, because we realized 2-3 hours of our life on a Saturday, that was so important, because that was our family time, and that mattered. And what is $50, $60, $70 a week to have somebody come clean for you, or every other week? And I'm not trying to be tone deaf either. I understand that's a lot of money for some people, but we just valued our family time more than we valued that at the time. And so it was a small way that we could delegate in our life that allowed us to prioritize other things. And in business, you should be prioritizing vision and innovation and mentorship. If you have employees, you should be mentoring those employees and spending time casting vision and growing the business. For me, in the beginning, it was all about delegating all the daily monotonous tasks, the actual heavy loading work of, it was a web design company that I had first started. And so getting somebody else to take those web designs really taught me a lot, because what I realized was, and what a lot of people say is, they say, well, I don't have the money to delegate. I don't have the money to go hire. And I'm like, okay, so say you're making, I don't know, $50 an hour. Let's just say $50 an hour. if you're a web designer or doing design or whatever, you're making $50 an hour as a designer. That's great. That's a good, a good hourly rate. You're pulling in, I don't know, an average of 100 hours a month. That's awesome. You're doing great. But think about this. You're spending 100 hours a month out of your, 160 to actually do the work. And the rest of the 60 is probably with busy work and paperwork and all this other stuff. But ask yourself, all your time at that point is spent doing the work itself. And so you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, what if I could buy back my time, and could I sell double the contracts? And the answer is probably yes, in the sense that you sold your first amount, you sold 100 hours at $50 an hour. That's fantastic. You could probably do that again given the time. So hire somebody using part of that $50 an hour, say $25, $30 an hour, hire them to do the busy work. You still have $20 to $25 an hour, a little supplementation there. And then that buys you a little bit of time. But it buys you your entire, all of your 160 hours back. And now you can go and find new customers just like you did in the first place. And what you'll end up with is double the customers. You'll be making $200 or $200 an hour, or 200 hours a month, and at $50 an hour. And all of a sudden you've doubled your income, and you have somebody working on that. And that's how you scale. You delegate to somebody else for less than what it is you're taking. I've told my own employees this, and this is probably pretty bad, but I've told my own employees, I'm like, if you go out and hire somebody to do your job for you, less than what we pay you, and you're making margin on top, and they're doing a great job at that, then I'm all for that. That's amazing. That's innovation. That's fantastic. I'm super proud of that, because at the end of the day, they're delegating their own tasks. And so think about places in your life that you can delegate to buy back the time and the focus and the mental capacity, which we'll get to here in a second, which actually brings us to our third of my 6 biggest mistakes in business, and that is not protecting my mental capacity. What does that mean? I think of my mind as a pie, right? So everything you say yes to takes a piece of that pie. And a lot of times, the excuses we tell ourselves as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as just busy people in general, especially in the NFT world, I'm sure, the thing we tell ourselves is, oh, that's not going to take a lot of time. That investment's not going to take a lot of time. But at the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't matter if you never, ever, ever do anything. If you say yes to something and you don't even have to do anything on it or whatever, guess what? It's still taking mental capacity. You've still chunked out a tiny bit of your brain, and your all the short-term memory, all the your thought patterns, before you go to bed, all the things running through your mind, you've still sold a tiny little piece of your mind to this. And so it doesn't matter what it is or how simple it is or how easy it is. If you say yes to anything, it will eat your mental capacity. So you have to consider what you're saying yes to. And I had to learn this the hard way. I said yes to everything in the world, and it exhausted me, it stressed me out, and I realized that very quickly that a lot of the things I said yes to, I made no money from. I got nothing back in return. It wasn't even for relationship or anything else. It was just to say yes because I didn't want to say no. I didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And that's not fair. That's not fair to my employees. That's not fair to me. That's not fair to the project I'm building. That's not fair to any of that, because I have to protect. My job is to protect my company. My job is to protect my projects. My job is to protect my family. My job is to protect the time that I have, the 24 hours a day that I have. I have to protect that, because if I do, I'm a better boss, I'm a better leader, and I'm a better friend, I'm a better father, and most importantly, I'm a better husband. And that's why you have to protect your mental capacity. Stop saying yes to everything. Really think about the things that you say yes to. It matters. And I know it's easy to just be like, oh, that's exciting. Yes. Why are we saying yes to so many projects? Why are we saying yes to so many different investment opportunities? And especially investment opportunities, because that's where your money goes. And if your money goes there, trust me, that's even worse than saying yes to like a coffee or some other type of commitment, because then you think about it all the time. You ever bought Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency and you're like, yeah, I'll just leave it there. No, you don't. You check it every single day. You're selling your mental capacity. No matter how amazing something is, it is not worth just burying your mental capacity, because guess what? One day, something incredible is going to come along and there won't be any other room in that pie. And you're going to be exhausted and you're going to be like, I can't do it. And you begin saying no to the right things when you said yes to all the wrong things and you ate up all your mental capacity. So that brings me to my fourth biggest mistake out of my 6 biggest mistakes in business. I'm super excited that we're talking about mistakes, because I think business failure, personal failure, and failure in general is the number one way to reach success. I believe that it's our job to fail faster. The faster you fail, the faster you learn. Every single person around you has to fail to get anywhere. You think that a college degree is going to give you real world experience, but it doesn't. Only real world experience gives you real world experience. And guess what? Real world experience is a fancy term to failure and making mistakes. And so whether it's in business, whether it's personal, whether it's at your job, if you are in any sort of competing or anything in your job or business, failing faster is what will get you ahead of all of your competition, because your competition doesn't think they need to fail. Your competition thinks they know it all. Your competition thinks that at the end of the day, they've got it figured out and they're going to go hire somebody to fix these problems for them. But what they don't realize is they have to make the same mistakes that you have to make if they're going to reach success. So I love talking about failure and I love talking about mistakes. So the fourth out of my 6 biggest mistakes in business is valuing money over people. Let's talk about this for a second, because people are the most important thing. And you might be saying, don't really care about people. And it's like, well, you need them more than you think you need them. Because if you're starting a business or doing any sort of project or anything like that, you have to have customers, right? Well, unless your customers are animals and animals want to pay you or aliens, then you need people. Customers are people. You have to value people over money. You have to build more value than what you're asking in return. That's the only way to sell. You can't think about this. If you sold books and the bookstore down the street was selling them at $10 a book, and you're saying, okay, great, the value of a book is $10 a book, and all you ever did was sell books for $10, nobody would buy them from you, because somebody else out there has better infrastructure, better customer service, all of this stuff, and you're selling them at the exact same price. So why would they go to you? You have to add more value so that they go to you first, right? That's valuing people. What can I give somebody more than what I can get from somebody? Secondly, employees are people, or volunteers are people. If you want to do a nonprofit, or if you want to build an organization or a business, or even just colleagues in your company, at the end of the day, colleagues and employees are people, and you need people. You have to value them, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that help you accomplish anything. I have not gotten successful by myself. So many people, self-made, millionaire or whatever. I'm not a self-made millionaire. So many people helped me get here. Yes, I took the risks. I took the responsibility. I took the weight of it. But so many people helped me get here. Hundreds of employees in and out of my companies, hundreds of mentors. And look at this. All of these, every single one of these people helped me reach my success. Every single book I've read. You have to value people because you will need them until the day you die. And that brings me to a great point. Imagine yourself on your deathbed. And I know this is macabre, but imagine yourself on your deathbed and you look back. Are you going to care about how many drinks you had that night or how many, thousands of dollars you made that month or, what car you got to drive? No, you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, man, who did I spend my time with? And who did I give my time to? People are all that matter in this life. Ask any grandparent. The number one thing they say is, I wish I would have spent more time with my grandkids or with my kids. That's all that matters. And when you value people, trust me, success will come. It's cheesy, but your net worth is in your network. And your network only grows if you value people. Joel Scrivener and I talked about this in length on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, on our episode of The Lab. Go ahead and check it out. It's on this same YouTube channel. And so, and we talked in length about valuing people around you, how to really make deep relationships, but also how to find mentors and why to find mentors. So that was a huge mistake in the very beginning when I started in business is I was like, money, 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 money. People are all that matter. People, if you value people, people will do anything for you because they love you and they care. They care about your success. When you have hundreds of people that care, thousands of people that care about your success because you put more value in them than you asked in return, that's thousands of people that are working on your behalf for free. Whether you call it karma, whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe, it doesn't matter. It comes back. So the fifth, this is a great flipperoo here, but the fifth of my 6 biggest mistakes in business was not firing people and not firing friends. So it is a 2-part, and you've heard the phrase, don't hire your friends. Frankly, it's okay to hire your friends, but I always my rule of thumb is that friends make better partners than they make employees. And the reason being is because friends don't have any expectations involved, right? So if you hire somebody, you think, okay, wait a minute, I expect them to do X, Y, and Z every single month. That's their job. Well, your friend isn't. They don't expect that. They're like, oh, he's my friend. He's going to let me do whatever. I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. That's how friendships work. And so when either employment or a friendship goes sideways in business, it's often easy for us to, especially if you're social like I am, it's very easy for us to get to the point where we say, wait a minute, I don't want to fire this person. We make excuses. And we talked about this on a few Millionaire Mindsets ago on Twitter Spaces. We talked about accountability and the fact that when you don't hold accountability for your employees, whether they're your friends or not, what happens is, and you might think, oh, it's no big deal. I like them. I like having them around. What happens is it becomes a cancer and they begin doing it over and over and over again, and you keep making excuses for them, and then eventually they do something that is just fireable, and you're like, you know what, we're gonna have to let you go, or this isn't working out anymore. And they're like, what? Why? I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense. Why didn't you ever tell me? People want candor. Not only do people want candor, but you're doing people a disservice. It's one of my leadership principles, actually, because a good leader holds accountability, because a good leader asks, how do I help this person be better than when they first started working for me or before they met me? How do I help this person become better after being around me? That's what a good leader asks. And so at the end of the day, if you're not holding accountability, you're not making them any better. You're actually making them worse because they don't see anything wrong with their actions and they think, whatever, no big deal. I told this story a couple weeks ago about an employee of mine who was a really good friend, and he became a friend after I had hired him. And he ended up, there were a lot of things that he did over and over and over and over again. He didn't hit his numbers. And I kept excusing it. I kept, whatever. And pretty soon I started hearing these rumors in the office about, he can just miss his numbers and nobody cares. And, it's a double standard and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, that's not right. And I left it. And then finally, when I addressed it, it became this huge thing. He got very upset. And he went and started a huge rumor about the company shutting down and all these problems in the company and all of this stuff. And I lost probably about 4 or 5 employees that day because they all quit thinking the company was sinking. And so it's very, very costly when you don't fire or reprimand people when you need to. And that brings me to the last point of the 6 mistakes that I made in business, 6 biggest mistakes that I made in business. I'll reiterate, I absolutely love talking about mistakes and failures because it's what drives us. It's what builds us. It's what strengthens us. I like to say that mistakes are the stepping stone or the steps in a ladder at the end of the day. If you are okay and willing to be humble and make mistakes, you will make it so much further than anybody out there in any field. It does not matter what you're doing in life. You could be looking for a promotion. Be willing and humble to make mistakes and respond well to mistakes. So the last of the 6 biggest mistakes that I made in business was valuing product over sales. And you've probably heard me talk a little bit about this, but I always thought that innovation and new features and all of that was the biggest thing that I could offer my customers. The problem is that I drove myself into a hole. And you know how I mentioned earlier, all my board leaving because the company wasn't profitable. This was when I had built my first big business. And the reason they left is because we weren't profitable and I had focused far too much on new features and not enough on selling. And the reality was I was like, I want to serve my customers. I want to keep adding value to my product. The problem is without sales, I couldn't maintain the company and I couldn't build a valuable company that was capable of serving my customers the best I could. And instead, everything began suffering because we didn't have the money to hire good customer service people, we had good ones, but we didn't have enough. And so service kind of was and we didn't have enough to hire good developers because I was spending all the money and time and effort on new features. And my focus was on innovation and not on sales. Money has to come first. If you don't, and this is what I think a lot of people, especially if you don't mind me saying, in our generation, in the millennial generation, a lot of us don't value or at least respect the fact that businesses have to sell. If they do not sell, then they can't offer good service. They can't offer good product. Do you think that the iPhone could be a good product if it was only $100? Sure, that sounds like a great idea. $100 iPhone, woohoo! Have you bought a $100 Android? It's trash. They suck. And don't be offended if you have a $100 Android. I'm not knocking them in that sense. I'm just knocking the fact that you pay for quality and people want to pay for quality. Have you ever called Apple? They're amazing to work with. Their customer service people are incredible. That's part of what you're paying for when you buy one of these products. You're paying, this is $1,400 for this phone. But at the end of the day, I'm paying for a phenomenal experience. And that's what I think a lot of the younger generations, including myself, didn't realize. I was like, I'm going to spend all this time on product, and I'm not going to develop a sales strategy that feeds that product. Innovation and features and value and all this is great, but it has to come after your business or your job or whatever is generating more revenue. More revenue means better customer service, a better product, happier employees, happier customers. And the reason this one's on my list, it might sound like a little random, but the reason this one's on my list is because it's so applicable to anyone's life. If you, let's say you're outsourcing something, or you're a freelancer, and you say, okay, I'm going to sell a website, and man, I don't think they're going to pay me $1,000, but so I'll go ahead and say I'll do it for $500. Are you going to do a good job on it? $500. You might think in the beginning, oh yeah. Well, a week from then, after that $500 gone, you're, oh gosh, I got to do this. It becomes a burden. And you don't want a burden, because burdens, you don't do a good job on a burden because it's checking a box. When you charge $1,000, which that customer, I guarantee the same customer that'll pay you $500 will pay you $1,000. One day we'll go through pricing psychology because I love it. But that same customer that can pay you $500 can pay you $1,000, and they'll get a better product out of it, and you won't feel like it's a burden anymore. And so that's why this last big mistake is on my list of valuing product over sales. Sales is what drives a company. And I know that might sound cold coming from somebody that's like, oh, people are all that matter, and people are all that matter. But guess what? If you believe in your product and you're really truly solving a problem for your customers, then it shouldn't be a bad sale. Sales is not bad. Like, marketing is not bad. Making money is not bad. In fact, you should make as much money as you possibly can if you solve a good problem for your customers and for your audience. And so those are the 6 biggest mistakes that I've ever made in business. And I loved going through every single one of those with you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I love talking about failure, like I said, and I would love to know what you think in the comments, and what you think in our Discord. I would love to, hear more about maybe some big failures and mistakes that you have made. Drop them in the comments. Drop them in the Discord. If you're not part of our Discord, we would love to have you. Our project is amazing. You can join our Discord by going to our Twitter, which is the username is Hustle, HUSL. NFT, Hustle NFT, excuse me. Yeah, at Hustle NFTs with an S. And it should be at the bottom of the screen as well. You can also go to huslnft.com and learn more about our project and join our Discord. And we would love to have you. This is a fantastic project to be a part of. All right, guys, I hope you have a killer Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. And next week, on next Monday, we have an awesome guest, my very good friend, Bryce. He's a massive real estate guy. He's got some amazing tricks and some awesome business principles and principles for life and making money. So have a fantastic Monday, and we will talk on the Discord. I can't wait to read some of the big mistakes and failures that you've made and what you learned from those failures.